Hi guys, welcome back. Sorry if the lighting is a little strange today. It's kind of late here, the sun went down, so I needed to use some really bright light in my face, but hopefully it looks okay. Today we're talking about why couples have usually the same problem over and over again, and what a couple of solutions to that are. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Anna, a clinical psychology doctoral intern. So relationship experts like John Gottman will tell you that couples usually have the same problem over and over and over again and never actually gets resolved. Actually, 69% of conflicts that couples have are unresolvable issues. Over 2/3. We're different people, we have incompatibilities, sometimes one person wants one thing, one person wants another thing, and there's that clash there. It could be like you think that your partner travels too much for work and your partner actually loves their job maybe. So before I actually get into the two solutions proposed in this video, write down in the comments what you think they might be or what solutions you might propose. Alright, did you do it? Here are the two solutions to this problem. One is to pick a perpetual problem that you can live with, and the second is to find a way to dialogue with your partner about the problem as opposed to ending up in a gridlock, which is basically when the two of you are just butting heads and you're not making any progress and both are very stubborn. And these solutions, like I said, are inspired by Gottman's research findings. If you'll remember, Gottman is the researcher who can predict if couples are going to stay together with over 90% accuracy, so he's one of the people that I respect most on his opinion on couples. So starting with the first solution, picking a problem that you are okay having over and over and over again. I propose a few questions to help you sort of figure out if this is the case for you and your partner. Is this something really painful for you, or is it just a little bit painful? Is this something extremely important to you? Is it something that touches on a very core value of yours? Or is it something that is not that important to you? Is this something that you could keep brushing up against every day for the rest of your life and you would be relatively okay with that? Is that something you could live with? Is it more of an annoyance rather than a deal breaker, or is it actually very much a deal breaker for you? Have you and your partner found ways to empathize with each other despite the problem and to find compromises and to work around it in a way that doesn't cause too much distress in day-to-day life? Is it a little problem or is it a big problem? Little problems are things like the two of you like different types of cuisine, and so on Friday night when you're picking where to get takeout or where to go eat, you keep coming up against the same issue that one of you is going to be a little bit unhappy. Or maybe one of you is very introverted, one of you is very extroverted, and every weekend, without a doubt, you have to make this negotiation of, are we going to go hang out with our friends or are we just going to hang out at home? Relatively little problems, right? But things that don't go away. Versus big problems could be, I want to live in Maine, you want to live in California. Things that cause everyday frustrations that really impact your life, that hit on core values that are very important to the people involved. Maybe you see family is super important, you want your parents to move in with you in their old age, and your partner absolutely wants this distinction and does not want to combine those aspects of their life. Maybe one person thinks they have a right to flirt with other people even if they're in a relationship and keeps no secret about the fact that they continue to be attracted to other people and talks about it, and the other person does not feel that way at all and is actually deeply monogamous and kind of has their blinders on when they're in a relationship. Maybe one person is having an emotional affair with someone at work and they have no intention of leaving their job, and the other person obviously wants them to stop the affair and to preferably leave their job. One of you wants kids and the other doesn't. You'll notice that the bigger the problem, the more potential the conflict has to get escalated, because the more important something is to you, the deeper it has the ability to trigger you. Few relationships will end up screaming over what takeout to get. If that's the case, then it's not really about the takeout, is it? It's about something much deeper, like, I don't know, the way they communicate to each other. And it's not just about you either. This isn't something that you can solve on your own, because it also concerns the other person's values and preferences and how much they see something as a big problem versus a little problem. And also it depends on both of your stubbornness versus flexibility. You could be the most flexible person in the world, but if your partner is very stubborn, that's going to put up a roadblock where, again, you're ending up in gridlock. So I did say earlier, is it a big issue or is it a little issue? But it's not necessarily the size of the issue that's the problem either. It's about how important it is to you. It's about how important it is to you, and it's about both of your willingness to manage that problem. In a sense, it's not even about the problem itself, but rather both of your tolerance to the problem? Are you willing to both tolerate going through this day in, day out for the rest of your life? So as an example, some people don't love the heat, but they're perfectly okay living somewhere that's super hot. That is not the case for me. I cannot handle heat. I get very angry when it's hot out, and I get very placid when it's cool, when there's like a chill breeze through the air. I'm more bright, I'm chipper. I don't want to live my life constantly having to live somewhere hot. I don't like even walking a few steps if it's hot out. So I know weather, for some people, they may have that preference, but it's not a big deal for them. For me, it is a big deal. You know, when my fiance and I were talking about like where we would want to live in different stages of our life, I told him, I don't want to live in the South. I cannot handle the heat. That is something that I didn't want to compromise on, and we were able to come to that mutual understanding. So ask yourself, what is the key issue behind the specific problem? Is it something that if nothing changes, you're willing to tolerate it for the rest of your life? Because if not, you may have come across a perpetual conflict that's going to cause a lot of distress in your relationship. Because you can't operate under the assumption that your partner is going to change, or that the problem's going to disappear, that the incompatibility is going to magically dissolve. It's not healthy to expect that of someone. It's also not fair to yourself, because you're not truly accepting the reality of the situation. And reality, no matter how hard it is, we do need to accept it in order to live with it. And if you expect your partner to change about something and it becomes apparent later on that they're not changing, that's going to build a lot of resentment inside you, and both of you are going to end up having higher conflict. So assume nothing will change. If this problem stays exactly the same in its nature, not in the way you handle it, because we'll get to that in number 2, would you still stay in this relationship? Like I said, there's a second solution as well. After you've accepted the problem, after you've said, okay, this is something I can live with, you have to rethink the way that you relate to the problem. Find ways to dialogue about it with your partner as opposed to ending up in gridlock. So gridlock, like I said, is when you're butting heads. Neither of you is budging an inch. You don't want to focus on resolving the problem or getting rid of the conflict, just on having a healthier relationship to it. We talk about this in ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, all the time. That you're not trying to change your thoughts, change your physiological reactions, change your emotions. You're just trying to change the way you relate to them. All these things I listed, they're more or less outside of your control, and I'm assuming this problem is as well. So you're not trying to change the problem, you're trying to accept it and find ways to relate to it that are more doable in your day-to-day life, less distressing, less painful. You need to be fully at peace with the reality that this problem is probably never going to fully resolve. Maybe there will be a week here and there where this doesn't seem to be an issue, or you have an important negotiation with your partner and the two of you are able to be relatively at peace with each other for a while, or maybe something changes and then it becomes an issue again. It's going to fluctuate for sure. That's not to say there's never going to be some progress, but you can't assume that there's going to be progress, Just like with a chronic health issue, just like with a serious mental health diagnosis that you kind of just have to manage in your day-to-day life, you need to have that acceptance. And just like with other people in your life, you have to somewhat accept that your family members have certain drawbacks, that your friends have certain weaknesses, that your bosses have certain things that don't mesh well with you. But you accept that. You don't just cut off all of these people and say it's not going to work. Instead, what you want to do is externalize the problem, meaning remove it from your relationship. It's not a problem with your relationship. It's not a problem with your partner. It's something separate from the two of you, and the two of you are addressing it as a team. It's more of a we effort rather than a me versus my partner and the problem. You're not lumping them together. You're lumping you and your partner together. If you think about it as a triangle, you want it to be an isosceles triangle where you and your partner are very close together and very far from the problem. What you don't want to happen is for you to be isolated and your partner to be lumped in with the problem, because then you're creating isolation, you're putting tension on your relationship, and essentially you're sending your partner the message that, here, go, be with the problem, I don't want anything to do with it. So how does this look like in practice? It could be, going back to the example of your partner works longer hours than you would hope. Let's say that they come home at 8, you're expecting them at 6, you're upset about it. Instead of saying, we talked about this, I thought you weren't going to do this anymore, when are you going to quit that job, I feel so lonely here, this is such a problem, I can't keep doing this. You might say, hey, I know your work schedule has been so hectic this week, I'm sure you're tired, I'm tired too, I miss you, I would love to spend more time with you next week. Is there anything that we can do together as a team to help that happen? Is there anything I can do? Is there anything that you would be willing to do in order to fix this problem in the next week or so? And also, you want to be having a lot of positive affect while you're having these discussions about the problem that's not going to go away. You want to infuse some humor into it if you can, to take a lighthearted approach, to continue to be affectionate and warm and intimate and friendly with your partner even while having these conflicts. Because if it's never going to go away, you might as well make it a little bit more fun to have to deal with this every day. Almost like be amused with the problem. For instance, I'm a very impatient person. Unfortunately, it's one of my biggest weaknesses. I don't like to wait for things. And my fiance is very aware of this, We joke about it. Like, if someone else is with us and my impatience comes up, it's just like a running joke that we say. It's not something that he takes to heart or takes it super personally or gets really upset about, because he's kind of just accepted that it's something that more or less is not going to change over the course of our relationship, and he's able to take an amused approach to it. Like, yeah, that's Anna. She's impatient. What do you want me to do about it? And also make sure that you're checking in with your partner about what this specific problem means for them, because oftentimes two people can be looking at the exact same problem from a different angle where you don't even realize, but their past experiences could be informing the way that they make meaning of it, or their dreams for the future. And what you don't want to do is to win this conflict, so to speak, to get your need met at the cost of crushing your partner's dreams, because then they're going to resent you, and hopefully you would feel some sort of empathy about that, like, oh shit, this person that I love, I just completely torpedoed their entire life dream. I don't feel good about that. So that's not something you want to do. You want to understand where they're coming from, why they have the stance that they do, even if it is diametrically different from yours. Like, I have expressed where my go, go, go mentality comes from, where my impatience comes from. It is no surprise to my partner. He can have compassion for it, and he can understand why it developed. Similarly, going back to that original example, you might realize in actually having these really meaningful discussions with your partner that what's going on is he feels like he has to prove himself, that he grew up in a situation in his home where performance was very linked to self-worth, and if he's not bringing in the big bucks and he's not gunning for the CEO job, then he doesn't feel good as a person. And he might learn that for you, you really struggle with being alone because you hate being alone with your thoughts, and that's what it means to you when he's gone long hours. And the two of you can not necessarily resolve the issue, but at least come to a place of empathy for each other and comforting each other and sort of viewing it as us versus this issue that we don't have that much control over. Let me know what you thought of this concept. I'll see you soon.